Yeah, I've got the interior sheeting on the bottom. The sheeting that I'm using is, I think it's Hardy board. It's about a 1/2 inch thick fiber cement board, and it comes in a 4x8 sheet. I made a mistake on the first piece that I did. I took it outside by myself, and I'd handle it, pick it up and move it around okay by myself, but when I went and put it up on the table, I kind of flopped it up on the table and I cracked it a little bit. So one piece is going to have a little crack in it. So I got some help doing the rest of them. So I got this screwed down with some 8 by 1 1/4 cement screws, and they're kind of a dusky colored screw, and they've got little tabs underneath the bugle head of them to kind of countersink them, and multiple screws, thread, double pitch thread. There's one, the outer big pitch, the coarse pitch is a big coarse one, and then there's a secondary finer pitch underneath that. So they can be screwed into either wood or steel studs. I found that screwing them in, they screw in, they kind of pick the board up a little bit, and it takes a little bit to get them to penetrate into the steel stud. To get them to countersink, you have to screw them in, pull them back out, and then blow the crud out from underneath the head of them, and then do that a couple times, because it gets this cement dust and the fibrous material gets underneath the head, and they won't fit in there flat. But once you do that a couple times, then they get in there pretty much flush. I'll go ahead and start working on the rest of them. I got them all cut out. It's supposed to rain like hell tonight, so I wanted to, this afternoon, so I wanted to get them cut out while the weather was still nice. Cut the cement board outside. It's pretty dusty, and it's silica dust or cement dust, so I wore a dust mask and did it outside to keep the dust down. Now I'm still making dust on it as I put these screws in, because they kind of saw their way in and they make dust, but it doesn't get around as bad as using the saw. The side 2 sheeted. Actually, this is side 1, since the first one I did was the bottom. This is the left side. Got it sheeted. It's the one that's got the cutout for one of the heating elements. Now I started to put a dust mask on, because putting those screws in there is picking up some dust, but it didn't work out too well. You put the dust mask on, and glasses get fogged up, and then I can't see anything, and I was putting those screws in and then backing them out and blowing out the dust and stuff from around the heads of them, so they'd sit down in there tight, and you can't really do that with a dust mask on. I went and turned on the dust collector and brought it over here, and then we've got an air filter that we put in just a few days ago, and I've got it turned on, so any dust being generated is either picked up by the dust collector or the air filter. And I can hold the dust collector right next to the screws, and it pulls in the dust and stuff that's generated by the screws, and when I blow it out, the stuff out that sticks around the head, it just sucks it right up, so it's keeping everything pretty clean. That side's done. I laid these frames down on the cement boards out on a couple of sawhorses. I put a couple of boards down on the sawhorses to support the whole sheet, and then put the sheet on top of the boards, and then laid the frames down on the sawhorses and drew out my pattern, drew out the size that way, and just cut it out with a circle saw with a cement blade, fiber cement blade, Hardy blade. The center of this, I laid the pattern out on it with pencil, and then just made a plunge cut with the circle saw and cut that out like that. And so I've got a little overcuts on the corners there that show up. Of course, you have to cut past to get the bottom of it to meet up. If I'd have turned those boards over so the backside was facing up, those cuts wouldn't even show on there, but they shouldn't be a problem, because they'll be covered up with a sheet metal trim to go around that heating element. So anyway, there's 2 pieces done now. I'll go ahead and zip up the rest of them, or screw up the rest of them. Well, I got the 5 pieces done with the cement board on them, the top, bottom, and the 3 sides. And then this is the back side here. I went ahead and made a recess tray for the burner for the heating element. Had some stainless steel. It's I don't know what it is. I think it's 22 gauge or 24 gauge that I got years ago. Is 24-inch wide. Anyway, I cut that and fabricated a little pan there for that burner. I've still got it to drill the holes in the bottom of it to mount this burner bottom on, and then we've got a turn these standoffs around on here. All the standoffs come on the wrong side on these two. I've already got one off, and I'm gonna have to get a bigger pair of pliers or vice grips or something to squeeze that down on there. But I get the other two turned around, get a couple holes drilled in there, and get that mounted down. Anyway, the hole here was 24 inches wide, and the strips of stainless that I have were 24 inches. So I took one piece and cut it long enough that I could make a box in there and a flange to go out over the outside. And then I cut some 4-inch wide strips and Z-band it, so I've got one flange going underneath this tray that I made, and the other one with the flange coming out over the outside. I've got this spot welder that I bought years ago, 5 or 6 years ago at Harbor Freight. You got it right there. Never used it. It's a 230 volt one, and I got it for just this occasion, but this is the first time I've used it. I got it out. Had a little bit of corrosion on it from sitting out in the hangar in the damp air and stuff, but cleaned up the contacts on it and stuff, and the arms on it, and got it set up, and it works like a champ. So it spotted that stainless. I got a little cratering in there, and the probes are sticking a little bit because the tension is a little too much on that when I clamp it closed. The way the tension is on it, if I loosen it up to the point where it can get the correct tension, then the nut on the little arm interferes with the handle as it goes up and down, so I wind up with a little too much tension on there, and so it craters and it sticks a little bit, but it's working pretty good. It made a halfway decent tray. Not ashamed of it. It's nothing that a sheet metal guy would be happy with, but it's good enough for me, I guess. It's better than what I had. Anyway, that one is done, except for drilling the holes and mounting that heating element in there. I think I've got enough metal to do the other one. It's going to be awful close of what I've got left off of that piece. Well, this back wall is done. Got the heating element mounted in there and the recessed tray. I measured out the height of these standoffs here from the tab up to the top of the coil of the heating element, and then I measured that from the back side of this tray to the front where I marked my holes for this, where it penetrates through the bottom of the tray. Drilled holes with a unibit, and I wound up having to drill pretty good sized holes, which doesn't hurt anything. It's better to have more clearance than have them touching. The heating element are bent down here towards the bottom where it exits the panel, and with the bend in them and the tabs on here for the connectors, I couldn't get enough of an angle on that, enough clearance on that to push it in to get it to slide down through those holes. So I drilled the holes pretty oversized, and we got them to go in there. This is probably meant to sit like this in an oven, flat, and these elements going up. So as these tabs here are on the bottom, they would rest on the bottom of the element, or if it was on the top, they would slide in the top and that would go down probably. I want this to go in, down, and these tabs to stick out the back so we can hook the wiring on them. So these little tabs here, these standoffs here are on the wrong side. They're just kind of crimped on, and I held this with a pair of needle nose and then took a pair of dikes and opened these up. I was able to turn them around, slip them on there, and then I took a pair of channel locks and crimped them back on. Then I took just a wood chisel, a small wood chisel, and just hit it real sharp into this stainless steel. Now this is either 22 gauge or 24 gauge, or I don't remember which, but the stainless is pretty tough, so took a pretty good hit, but I just hit it just a little bit, made a little bit of a slot in there, and then took a plastic hammer and hammered those standoffs in through that slot. So they're pretty secure. So that element is pretty secure on there, and that doesn't damage the elements any at all. This element has little stainless steel tabs on here to screw it down to secure it as it goes through a bulkhead, and those were just too long, stuck out too far. I had to cut those off, and then I just drilled a hole through this standoff, this plate here, through this stainless steel tray and all the way down through the structure underneath it, the steel stud, and then put a lath screw in there to hold it down. Could be better at my sheet metal work on here. My edges and stuff could be prettier, but I'm pretty happy with the way that turned out. That's the back wall. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing with the left wall. We got the 3 sides up on the base on the bottom. They're screwed down to the bottom and to the 3 sides. Have to get some help to get that lifted down to put the top on it. Still haven't got quite figured out what to do about a door yet. Have to see if I can scrounge around and find enough material to make a frame. So there's the left side with the heater element in it, and the right side, or the back, with the heater element in it. Now I got some muffler cement and sealed up the joints on that, where there was gaps, openings. Anyway, it's coming along. Sucker's heavy, so I have to see if I can get some help getting it down on the floor. I'm sure I can get it down on the floor by myself, but probably wouldn't be in one piece. Either me or the box. Well, there's the box nailed together. Wasn't as heavy as I thought it was going to be. 2 of us got it down on the floor without any trouble. Anyway, it's all screwed together. We need to wire up the outlets and get the insulation in it. I still got to figure out what I'm going to do with the door. And I got some muffler sealer, exhaust sealer, whatever it was, from Napa, and I used it to seal up the gaps in those trays for the burners, the heating elements. I think I'll get some of that and dope up those corners, those joints. They're not exactly airtight, although it doesn't make that much difference. It probably doesn't hurt to have a little ventilation in that thing. I'll probably figure out some way to get some light in there. I've got some porcelain light fixtures, but I was thinking maybe you get some smaller ones of some kind, something that can fit up in there, because that's only 2 3/4 inches at top. Anyway, there's the box. It's a big sucker. I'm probably gonna make a little cart for it to sit on. I want to get it up a little bit higher off the floor than that. I've got some wheels, some casters and stuff, and so I can build a cart for it and get it up in the air. I don't want it as high as what that bench was, but if I can get it 1.5 feet or 2 feet up in the air, that would be a good working height on it. Since it's 4 foot tall, 2 foot off the floor would make the top of it 6 feet, which is not bad. Something like that. It's like I said, I don't have a plan, it's just an idea. We'll see what works. The wiring won't take much. We've got high temp wiring to run from those heating elements out to the outside of the insulation. Then I can run regular wire from there up to the PID, and I've got high temp wire to hook in some light fixtures. Again, all I need is just enough to get it outside of the heat envelope of that oven, and then you can run regular wire on it. Well, I don't have any idea when the PID, the controller, is going to be here. It's been in China for a month. It says it's out of there now. Hopefully it'll be a few days and it'll be here. If I get all this done, the insulation in and the wiring in and everything, then all I'll have to do is just hook that PID up to it and it'll be ready to work.